What do most Fortune 500 executives have in common? They learned important lessons on the fields and courts of their high school and collegiate sports teams. This is true for both men and women. Ernst & Young found that a whopping 94% of women holding a C-suite position played sports. Their wins and losses shaped their habits and who they would become. Join me on my journey to sit with some of the brightest executives in the world as we discuss how sports shape their professional trajectory. In partnership with Chief Executive Magazine, the voice of America's CEO community, I'm your host, Don Yeager, and this is Corporate Competitor Podcast. With me for today's episode is Pam Rausch, Vice President of External Affairs and Economic Development for the third largest electric utility in the United States, Florida Power & Light. She spent 10 years practicing law in Palm Beach County before joining FP&L and has climbed her way up the corporate ladder in her 23 years with the company. But prior to that, Pam was the captain of the University of North Carolina Tar Heel women's tennis team, and I'm excited to learn how lessons from the court in Chapel Hill helped her stay ahead of the curve.
If you have an idea, we want to hear it. We are constantly trying to improve for our customers. That's really the mentality and the culture of an athlete. Even if you're number one, you want to be better than yourself. You want to beat your record. That's where true leadership comes into play. Our senior leadership embraces pushback, embraces different thinking. Not every idea is going to ultimately work, but we have the brain capacity at this company. We have so many talented people that work here. Speak up.
Pam, thanks so much for joining us.
First of all, Don, I want to thank you and your team for accommodating me in rescheduling this.
We were supposed to record this session a couple of weeks ago, but that week, everything went to heck in your life because a hurricane was bearing down on Florida, Hurricane Ian. And in that situation, you have a role that you have to step into at Florida Power & Light called a storm role. How does that work as a leader?
For all of us at FPL, storm recovery is the ultimate team sport. We actually do go into what we call storm mode, where every FPL employee, all 9,000 of us, have a different job. It's a military operation, and it's also like a team. We do things that a professional athletic team would do. You have to be ready, so we train year-round for these types of events. We have a storm dry run every year. You walked into our headquarters, you would think there really was a hurricane coming because our communications is talking about it. Everyone jumps into the role that we're assigned for storm recovery. My role is sort of the equivalent of a special teams coach. I oversee a team of about 100 people who are trained to staff the emergency operations centers in each of the impacted counties. Those centers operate 24/7 once they're activated. So we've got an Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie shift in those EOCs, and they are really the face of the company and the communications line between those impacted regions and our command center that is operated at a Cat 5 bunker in West Palm Beach.
Boy.
We pre-position crews all over the state. We put them in safe places, but we try to get them as close to where it's going to impact so that they can get in and start restoring customers as soon as possible. And if you were watching that storm, at the last minute, it shifted south and it hit Fort Myers Beach. That storm was so big, it had impacts in Miami-Dade County, Broward, Palm Beach, Southeast Florida, even all the way up to Northwest Florida. And our crews were positioned accordingly. 2.1 million customers were out. We restored more than 50% of them within 24 hours. Anyone who could have power got power within 7 to 8 days.
Wow.
It was a devastating storm, and our hearts go out to so many who lost their homes, still don't have power, but we were able to restore power at a faster rate than we ever have. It's a military operation run by an incident commander, but it's also very much like a team. We get better and better at that process, but we do treat it like we're training for the Super Bowl.
Many of our listeners may not see these, But because I live in Florida and I'm in one of your marketplaces, the other thing that really strikes me about that is that you have commercials on television for weeks as we head into the storm season, letting people know that you are setting yourself up to be more effective for them. The entire model of it is truly letting people know that you're going to be there for them and then preparing to be there for them and then being there for them. It's quite daring, I think, to actually tell everybody that you're going to be there because then the expectations increase exponentially.
I don't think I really realized it when I joined the company. One of the blessings of being part of this amazing company is that when you work for FPL, you truly are a first responder. We all are supporting the linemen who are heroes, but all of us are getting to be part of a team of first responders. And it is such a satisfying thing to be able to do that. And our families do sacrifice. I have a deal with my husband when there's a storm that he's agreeing to evacuate so I don't have to worry about my children and my husband. That's what all of us here at FPL do. We have a plan in place with our families so that we know they'll be safe,
Mm.
and then we have to go do our job. So I have not spent a hurricane with my children since they were babies. But my whole family is very proud of the fact that we get to play a role in helping restore Florida when emergencies like that happen.
You refer to this as a team sport and that this is a team event for you. Many organizations use that term teams. I actually think it's overused in a lot of corporate environments. You've been part of teams. You know what it is to be part of a team. But most of these teams that we talk about in the corporate world really are not much more than a bunch of individual contributors who just happen to work for the same company. As a leader who has to build a team for your operations centers, what advice would you give to a younger leader trying to learn how to build a team, having had the experience over and over and over again that you have?
I applied a lot of what I learned in sports to that as I grew into a leadership role here at FPL. If I had to sum it up, the most important thing when you join a team in whatever capacity, you have to earn your stripes and you have to earn the trust of your colleagues or your teammates. No matter how good a player you are or how talented a person you are in your skills, when you work for a bigger purpose and when you have a mission that is bigger than yourself, you realize not one person can do that. And at FPL, we all feel like we're working for a bigger purpose. We're changing the world by bringing clean energy to our customers and to the world. We've got a Real Zero initiative where we're going to completely eliminate emissions from our energy emissions profile. When you join that team, you're in the trenches. You earn the trust and the respect of your colleagues. That grows a healthy team. And oftentimes that means you're the leader. That's what happened to me my freshman year in college. I was the only freshman who came onto the team, not really recruited heavily, almost a walk on, if you will. There wasn't a lot of excitement from the older girls, but I worked hard at being there and being a reliable teammate. I even helped create a social schedule for the girls. By the end of my freshman year, I had earned my place, I had earned my niche. From there, I became one of the leaders of the team. I don't think you can come in with a sense of entitlement that you're the best or that it's all about you. When you truly have the heart for the bigger purpose, you create that magic that you need to have a successful team.
One of the great lessons, a good takeaway I'm getting from this answer is just that no matter what your role and no matter what your title, you still have to get in the trenches. You have to do the work and they have to see you arm in arm in order for them to truly lock with you and be willing to go be a teammate.
Absolutely. No matter what your role is on a team, whether you're on the starting lineup of an athletic team or whether you're an entry level analyst on a corporate team, you have a leadership role in that role.
Right.
You may not be the guy at the top calling the shots, but everybody has an opportunity to be a leader by growing your responsibility within the role that you have, by maximizing and optimizing everything you can do to add value to where you're at. That's what defines real leaders. It's not the CEO or the captain of the team. It's those people in their roles that are really adding value and working towards the success of the mission.
I find what you had to do in the moment so fascinating. And I don't think it's something most of us get a chance to ever talk to someone like you about a hurricane response. So thank you for that. Tennis has been such an important part of your life, especially your formative years. And I know that as much as you love the game, it felt like you might have hit a ceiling at high school. You were really good, but maybe the next place for you to play was a smaller college. But when it came time to pick a school, you went big. I mean, real big. You chose to play at the University of North Carolina, ACC, powerhouse, great school. That decision, risky as it was, changed your life.
As we all navigate life, deciding where to go to school or where you're going to start your life does help to start to find what kind of person you are and how you're going to perceive life. Yes, it was true. I had worked really hard at my tennis game. I was an okay player. I was going to play in college somewhere. Most schools that were offering me full scholarships were smaller schools. And I just fell in love with the University of North Carolina. They happened to be a really good tennis team. They were 11th in the country. Coach really liked me and she wanted me to come give it a try. She couldn't guarantee me a spot on the team or even, for sure not a starting spot. But I decided I wanted to try to do something I didn't think I could do.
Mm.
Some things had to go right with that decision. I was lucky that I made that decision to go there. I was lucky to make the team. And then I was lucky to it just worked out. One of the seniors dropped out and I moved into a starting position my freshman year. That's the approach I took as I navigated my career when I was interviewing for law firm jobs when I graduated from law school. Had several offers, but I selected the law firm. Is a very well respected top law firm in the state. A lot of people said you're going to work really, really hard. It's going to be a grind, but if I can make it at this firm, I can make it anywhere. Approaching my path that way has led to a lot of success for me. It has also led to some stumbles along the way. It doesn't always work out, but if you don't put yourself out there and give it a try, you're never going to know.
Right.
That's what really excited me to try to pursue something that I didn't think I could do.
I wanted to try something I didn't think I could do. Human nature says stay in your comfort zone. Don't expose yourself to potential failure. Where in your life do you gain confidence to step out and say, you know what? There's a better than average chance I could fail at this if you look at all the metrics, but I'm going to try it anyway.
Growing up, my father always used to say, success does not lead to happiness, but happiness leads to success. If you love what you're doing, you're going to be successful. When I first graduated from law school and did start working in private law practice, a top law firm, anybody in my law school class thought I had it. When you graduate from law school, you're supposed to go work for a law firm and you need to stay on this path. After a couple years, I just realized it wasn't all that I thought it was going to be. It wasn't for me. I didn't see myself doing it for the rest of my life. I had saved up just a little bit of money. I knew I could live for a year, and I quit my job.
Mm.
Took several months off, went out to Colorado, rode my bike through Colorado and Alaska, climbed Mount Rainier. Wasn't sure if I was even going to come back. Thought maybe I'll just become a bartender. But I realized when I was out there that I actually really loved being a lawyer. I just wanted to do it in a different way. I didn't want to work because I was boxed in. I wanted to chart my own path, and it wasn't going to be defined by how much money I made or how much my title was. I wanted to find something that I woke up in the morning, I was excited to do it. I came back to Florida. I was excited to practice law again, but I went to work for the city of West Palm Beach as a deputy city attorney, making less money, and absolutely loved it. And that's where I really started honing my skills as a land development lawyer. I was able to kind of help lead a big project in downtown West Palm. At the time, it was called City Place. We totally transformed the downtown. And I found what really inspired me. And I loved that I was able to work on projects that really mattered to the community where I lived and really improve the lives of others. I had so much fun during that 5-year part of my career, and that's what ultimately led me to FPL. I've had the same kind of inspiration working here, working on clean energy, working on improving the lives of our customers, and being able to work on our corporate philanthropy and community engagement in my role now. I followed a path where I felt inspired.
So society has mapped out a pathway to quote unquote success, but you changed the measurements. You changed the way that path would at least work for you. That willingness, that risk taking, I've read your father is an extraordinary man for offering so much confidence to you. He also said your biggest risk is not failure, it's success. When you look around the world, people who've been given so much, they often blow it. So you were reframing success for you in these conversations with your father for many years.
Yes, I think back on some of the advice that he gave me and I realized how on point it was. He grew up in a poor town in northwestern Pennsylvania, and he had motivation for working hard. And he worked very hard, went to medical school, moved his family to Florida, and started his life there and grew to be a successful doctor. But he felt that he had incentive because he didn't have very much growing up. And he would look around and see people who had worked hard, but garnered a sense of entitlement that it was supposed to happen that way, that it was supposed to be all work out. And they would make mistakes and they would get lazy. That's exactly why my parents introduced my sisters and I to tennis. I grew up in a family that was very competitive. We had challenges for ping pong and shuffleboard and backgammon and Miss Pac Man. And my whole family played tennis. We grew up in a small town and it was a big tennis town. And, there's always that nasty girl, right? The girl that's not the nicest girl in town.
They make movies about them.
They do. My dad would incentivize us and he'd say, if you ever can beat her in a club tournament, I'll give you $100. Never thought I could win the $100. $100 was a lot of money back then. Sure enough, the next club tournament, I beat her.
Wow.
You would have thought I would have won Wimbledon. My family celebrated those little wins like they were the Wimbledon championship. He was a big believer that sports creates artificial obstacles, if you will. It puts those obstacles in front of you and trains you how to deal with obstacles in life. His goal was not to train three professional tennis players, but to help train three girls to navigate life because you're always going to have obstacles. That's why athletes are oftentimes very successful in business. It does take training, discipline, teamwork. It takes all those things that make successful athletes to really navigate not just your career, but your life in general. I give my dad a lot of credit for that. He used to say, statistically, you're supposed to fail because I'm the one that worked really hard to pull myself up. But I think that he created those artificial obstacles and he gave us some really good advice along the way that we always had gratitude for what advantages we did have. And we never took that for granted. And we worked really hard to find our way.
Artificial obstacles. I love it. You go to North Carolina in a pretty extraordinary time. Forget the number 11 ranked tennis team in the country. You're also there when a guy by the name of Michael Jordan happens also to be in school. In fact, you had a class with Michael.
We had many classes together.
Tell me anything you learn while you're there getting a chance to be part of excellence in a program that was at its apex at that time.
It was such an honor and a treat for me to be part of the UNC organization during those years. When I started as a freshman, it was the same year Michael Jordan started as a freshman. Neither one of us were picked to be the top player coming in, believe it or not. The similarities stop there. There were so many incredible athletes attending that school at the time, and we were all just freshman student athletes when we started, just there to get an education and to play the sport we loved. You didn't just have Michael Jordan, you had James Worthy, Sam Perkins, Jimmy Black. They all weren't freshmen, but they were all playing on the team. We had Davis Love on the golf team, BJ Surhoff playing baseball. Just a moment in time where there was such excellence in sports. It was so much fun to be able to be a spectator at their games. In fact, one of the premier perks of being a freshman tennis player was freshman athletes had the honor of ushering for the basketball games.
Boy.
Carmichael Stadium back then was so small, students would camp out for a week to get a ticket. That's the difference between basketball and tennis. Basketball is a religion at UNC.
Oh, yeah.
But if you were a freshman athlete, you were entitled to a ticket, but you would usher for the games. I would sit on the floor with my usher jacket and keep everyone at bay. One of the best perks, especially because that was their championship year beating Georgetown. And we saw a lot of really great games. The student athletes were amazing. And, Dean Smith, just like all the other coaches, you didn't go to class, you didn't play. Michael and I had the same major. And so we were in a lot of classes and he was there every time.
There you go. Michael Jordan, you
Mhm.
now have Pam as your witness.
Yep, I was there.
Was there a moment, a story you might share with me from your time on the court where you learned a lesson that has helped make you a more effective leader in the work setting?
You know, I would go all the way back to high school. I played for a high school team in Fort Lauderdale. My best friend was a tennis player who we were very equally matched. She was my doubles partner. Our senior year, we were both vying for the number one position. And the tennis coach of the high school team was her personal coach, but not my personal coach.
Mm.
His rule was, okay, you two are each going to play each other every week for the number one spot. Literally, it was a 4 to 5 hour match every time we played because we both wanted to play number one our senior year so bad. Every week we would go out and we were very even. So the match would go on and on and on. And it was very emotional because we both wanted to win. Typically, after the match, the winner would take the loser and we'd go to 7-Eleven and buy a Slurpee, and it would be okay. We always knew there was next week. Our team had never been able to get past winning districts. There was always a team that was far superior to us. This year, we were really competitive. And senior year, we were able to beat that team. And for the first time ever in our school's history, be the district champion and move on to the state championships. At that point, coach said, you two are going to play for the number one spot to play at states. I won the match. And the coach said, well, no, that's not what we're going to do. Your friend's going to play number one. I was extremely upset. I marched home to my parents. I said, you need to go down and talk to the coach. My father said, no, I'm not going to do that. It may seem wrong. It may not seem right, but you have to learn when you're on a team, whether you like it or not, the coach is the one that calls the shots.
Mm.
So we went on to the states and actually beat all the odds and became co-champions. We tied for the state championship. I played the number two role and was able to upset a couple of seeded players that were supposed to get to the finals. And so I was able to add more value at number two. And in fact, probably is the reason that we were co-champions. The team is bigger than the individual. The coach, whether you like it or not, that's the role they're in. Just like, in a storm when we're listening to our incident commander, someone has to call the shots and you have to respect that. When you play for the team and not for yourself, sometimes you can have a better outcome.
I love this lesson, and it's not just sports in high school. You're right, it's life. Often we desire that limelight role. We desire the opportunity to be play number one, but that may not be what's best for the team. And who knows why that coach made that decision. There could have been some personal bias in there, but at the end of the day, you played a more important role at number two than you would have had you been number one.
Right. And I have to give a shout out to my sister because she played the last spot, never lost a match in high school. And never got the credit that I got because I was the captain playing number one or two. But Tammy, she was a big part of that reason we won also.
I love it. One of the lessons we often teach when we're talking about building great teams is that you can have those people on your organization that are invaluable, who are never voted most valuable. You couldn't do it without them, even though they don't get the best parking spot and they don't get invited to President's Club. They create an invaluable position. Clearly, you served that role during that run to the state tournament.
I'd like to think so.
I love it. I think that's really awesome. Professionally, you're the first woman to hold the vice president of external affairs position at the ginormous FP&L company. Tell me a little about the journey at FP&L and what you learned along the way.
When I joined the company, I was a member of the FPL law department. Perfect role for me. I'd come from the city of West Palm Beach. I was able to bring a lot of experience working in the local government sector, how to get through the permitting process, local government relationships, and how important they are. I also had gotten married and had one child, knew I might not be done having my children. And the role of vice president of external affairs became open because the gentleman who had held it for many, many years was retiring. I had a couple colleagues come to me and say, you should really raise your hand for that role. You'd be perfect for that role. Of course, to me, it looked like a dream job, but I thought, really? Would I be someone that could be considered for that job? And so I actually went and met with him, and I did a lot of legal work for he and his team. And he said, Pam, I don't think this job would be for you. You have to be out at night all the time. You really have to live in Miami and you have to travel a lot. This isn't for you. I said, "Oh, well, thank you very much for talking to me about that. You're probably right." I went back and I loved what I did, so I wasn't in any huge rush, and they hired somebody else. As soon as that happened, I realized I had made a mistake because just because someone does that job in a certain way doesn't mean it has to be done exactly that way. I could have brought my own skills to the job. Luckily for me, the job became open 3 years later. When they approached me about it, I couldn't wait to say yes. And I was fortunate because the CEO who hired me at the time even gave me some advice. He said, "You don't need to do this job the way your predecessor did. You bring your skills to the job." I based myself out of here in our headquarters in Juno Beach. I was able to add a lot more value because I'm at the table physically with senior leadership. I was able to bring other things to the table with things that I've created in community engagement. I created a volunteer program, grew our charitable giving. So I was able to do a lot of things that had not really been part of the role before. I made the role bigger than it was. Don't look at the positions that you're going to fill to do them the exact same way. Bring what you have to the job. You'll make it better, you'll add more value, and you'll optimize.
It's a powerful lesson for those who are listening. Don't just accept the role for the way it has been done previously. Look at how you might change the role with some of your skill sets.
Absolutely.
The challenge is communicating that. It happened that you ended up in the right place the second time around, but maybe that first time might not have worked because they were almost trying to talk you out of applying.
I think that the gentleman who was there, he had just been there for a long time and, had viewed it the role a certain way. As leaders, it's important for us to realize that too when you're looking to bring in a next generation of leaders and to fill spots of people who are retiring. Don't look for the exact same type of person. Look at high potential leaders and what they could bring, not necessarily to do it exactly like their predecessor.
What great advice. I know that's something we can all take something from. Thank you. Creative ideas, they're so needed in every industry. You could look at energy and think, oh, well, we've been doing it this way for 100 years. Innovation can be challenging to foster in worlds like that. Part of your role is to help inspire new ideas and keep good things flowing. What are some of the innovative work that you are leading the charge to try to inspire within the company?
Don, one of the most exciting parts about working for this company is the innovation and the creativity that goes on here. It's in our DNA and our culture here to be innovative and to think differently. We don't have any coal, we don't have any oil in our system. We converted to natural gas, and now we're really focused on growing solar. And by 2045, we will not have any emissions in our profile at all.
That's crazy.
We've made that commitment, and there's no one in the country that's done that. We're working with batteries and we're exploring green hydrogen technology. And really, the way that happens is embracing new ways of thinking. A former chairman of our company, Jim Broadhead, we have an award competition named after him, the Broadhead Awards. Every year, teams of employees come together and they have ideas. Anything from a chip that totally changes the nature of the way a wind turbine spins and is more efficient or helps with the maintenance of it. Or it could be the law department and records retention. Everybody gets in costumes and does exciting pitches. It's almost like Shark Tank. They present these ideas. The whole company gets to watch it. The senior leaders are the judges, and it really fosters innovation. All the ideas are great. Honestly, we adopt all the ideas, but we have a winning team and they get a big cash award. In my team, we have an incubator called 35 Mules. We receive applications every 15 to 18 months and bring in 5 to 10 startup companies. We give them a $100,000 grant. We have a space here for them that's built out that's super cool. And we really work with them to give them access to our engineers, to our executives. We give them training, we give them access to venture capital, really work with them to bring them to the next level. But the benefit to our company and our employees is our employees get to come and work with them and talk with them and really understand that creative thinking, that out of the box thinking that you need to have that entrepreneurial spirit. 35 Mules sits in the middle of our headquarters where our employees walk back and forth all day and can come in and check out what they're doing. Is really part of that effort on our company's part to continuously look at innovation, continuously looking at new technology for how we do our business. Just at Hurricane Ian, we launched for the first time our FPL Air 1, which is an unmanned drone. It's the first one the FAA has approved privately. It flew the distance, the equivalent of from here to Tucson, Arizona during the storm to photograph over 50,000 images of our system, which gave our crews so much more information than ever before on how to restore. And we're able to do that so much more efficiently and quickly. No one's ever used technology that way.
So I want to unpack a couple things that you said there. The employee competition. How do you inspire that within a company? There are a lot of companies where that might come off as cheeky or embarrassing, or I don't want to go kiss up to the bosses and come up with an idea. Clearly, you've gone way past that. Was there something that you all did that helped make that kind of an internal competition actually work?
That's where true leadership comes into play. Our senior leadership embraces pushback, embraces different thinking. Some companies, it all funnels up to the CEO and it's their way or the highway. And I really admire and respect the CEO of our company and our senior leadership team because it is truly a culture where whatever your role is, if you have an idea, we want to hear it. Not every idea is going to ultimately work, but we have the brain capacity at this company. We have so many talented people that work here. Speak up and say what you think. It's that kind of culture that I think has really fostered this innovation. We would have never converted off oil if it wasn't for that thinking. It would have been much safer for our company to say, hey, we're regulated. We can keep running. This is how much money we're allowed to make. We're going to cover. It doesn't matter that it's going to cost our customers more. But it was the leadership team that said, is that really the right thing? No, it's going to continue to emit high emissions. It's going to continue to cost more because it's going to cost more to run. And even though no one else in the country is going to do it, we're going to start tearing down our old plants and building much more efficient ones, which ultimately saved our customers $12 billion over a 10-year period. We got sued for that. We were said, oh, don't do that now. That's the risk that we're taking on solar. We are moving to a solar economy. We're using batteries. We're embracing that new technology. And we know that new technology is only going to get better. And we're finding even better ways to use it. For example, the smart technology on our grid, not just during hurricanes, but even during blue sky days. That technology is giving us so much more information, and we're finding so many more ways to use that technology that we didn't even think was possible when we first decided to do it. It's continuing to force innovation. We are constantly trying to improve for our customers. That's really the mentality and the culture of an athlete. Even if you're number one, you want to be better than yourself. You want to beat your record.
There's your Michael Jordan reference.
That's right.
I love too the 35 mules concept, the idea that you would bring in almost as an incubator a bunch of folks who are thinking way outside the box in whatever space it is. And not all of those incubated ideas that you're supporting are ideas that will fit into your company. Just the power of having people with minds like that in your proximity, the value of the association with creative minds is proven valuable to you and your team.
It truly has. My team is lucky enough to get to house it because I have an economic development team. We're out there trying to bring new businesses to Florida, grow jobs in Florida. We've had a lot of success doing that. And in addition to commingling with employees here in the innovative culture, we also hope these companies will actually decide to stay in Florida and bring new ideas and new industries and new people to Florida that will add really good jobs. It's a win-win.
Yeah. I also know that part of the area that you have under your control is the robust volunteering program. You and your team have given 89,000 employee volunteer hours.
In 1 year, in 1 year.
That's incredible.
Mhm.
Can you share a specific volunteer story, some experience that you had that will stick with you forever?
When I took over this role in the company, I realized that we weren't even leveraging our best asset, our people. There are so many good people at this company that, as hard as they work, they spend their weekends doing other things to help their community. We wanted to showcase that. That's how we created Power to Care and gave our employees an opportunity to log hours when you do things. And then we provided opportunities to do things so that it was a employee engagement opportunity and business units could come together and do things outside the office. We reward employees for doing that. If they put in 40 hours of volunteer time, we'll write a check to their favorite charity. So there's so many stories for our troops at the holidays, going in and lighting up their houses before they come home from overseas and get to see that. One of the organizations that's close to my heart was started by a former colleague who worked for me and he retired. He felt that there were a lot of athletes in Palm Beach County that came from single mom homes. It wasn't just about becoming a pro football player, but they needed to learn leadership, integrity, honesty, and they needed to have a male role model. So he began an organization called ACEs, Athletes, Community, Education, Students, athletes of all sports. They didn't have to be the top athlete, from all schools, private, public, came together. And he's really grown that across the state and he's trained thousands of boys and girls. And the purpose of the program that FPL is a big sponsor of is to teach these athletes that it's not just about being a great football player, a great basketball player, but it's the integrity and the leadership that you bring. A lot of these kids, they're not going to end up playing professionally. Some do, but not all of them will. But they need to be prepared to go into the workforce. It's been a really valuable program that I've really witnessed. I actually serve on the board. It's been just such a wonderful feeling to be part of it and to have one of our own FPL retirees and his daughter running the program.
That's strong. You also serve on the Orange Bowl committee.
I do.
As an organization, you all don't just throw one of the great parties in South Florida, but you also host an incredible football game. What's that been like, being in that Orange Bowl world for you, and what have you learned?
I've really enjoyed it. And I do serve a role representing the company. We're a corporate member. Traditionally was a Miami-based organization, but now it's really a tri-county. So it's Broward County, Palm Beach County based organization, and its members come from all of those counties. I've really enjoyed participating in that with many of my colleagues in these communities because my work spans the whole state. So I span Broward and Miami-Dade and Palm Beach counties. It's so focused not just on the football game. There's so much work in the community. And by the way, they sponsored the Orange Bowl junior tennis tournament, which I played in back when I was a kid. So that's
Oh, you're kidding me.
big circle. But we also do a lot of leadership. We offer a lot of programs for young students. They have a leadership academy where those high school football players that don't get recruited by the big schools have a second round of looks from smaller schools. And it results in many, many students getting further opportunities to go play in college. We do a lot of community events to bring awareness to the community. We raise money for important causes. So it's just a well-rounded, well-run organization that historically just really represents South Florida in such a great way. We all wear our orange jackets, and we're super excited to be sponsoring the national championship game in 2026. We sponsored the championship game in 21 during COVID, and we're able to carry it off, but it was a challenge. And so I think because we did such a good job, we've now been awarded the 2026 game, and I'm going to be on that host committee, and I'm super excited about that.
That's going to be fun. Well, hopefully the team I'm cheering for might be in that mix one of these days here again. Pam, I have to thank you from the time we met through Leadership Florida and the opportunity to learn more about what you do. It's been an honor to get to know you, to get to understand more of what you do for FP&L, and to think about how the lessons you've learned in the competitive environment you've exceeded in has allowed you to be a greater leader. And today, I thank you for being a corporate competitor.
Well, thank you, Don. I really enjoyed your presentation at the Leadership Florida annual meeting. You were awesome. I've passed out your 16 tips for success to my kids. And I really enjoy your book. So thank you for all you do.
Wow. I have to tell you, I have lived in Florida for 25 years, and there were things I learned today about how a company like FP&L and a leader like Pam Roush actually plays such an outsized role in the way that our state and the way our world responds to tragedies like hurricanes. There were three great takeaways that I walked out of the conversation with. In addition to these takeaways, I hope you'll download the bonus resource that we have lined up for you with today's session in the show notes. I hope you'll get as much out of what your takeaway is as you took from the energy of the conversation, my first great takeaway really came from Pam's decision when she was coming out of high school to take a risk to go to a school that was bigger than where she should have been playing at North Carolina, team that was 11th in the country. And here she was, just lightly recruited and encouraged just to come. And she didn't just make the team, she proved to be a valuable resource to the team by creating camaraderie within the organization from a very early stage. You want to try to do something that you didn't think you can do. When you take that step, when you take that leap, extraordinary things can happen. And obviously, being at North Carolina was a driver in so many other things that she was able to achieve. My second big takeaway really came from the discussion around Hurricane Ian and how Pam and her team went to work to try to restore power to so many people. But it wasn't just what they've done in the time since the hurricane hit, it's what they did before. They spend years training and they're always practicing and they're taking dry runs at the idea of a hurricane coming in. And when you walk into the emergency operations center, you think, man, this is on right now. So they are constantly preparing themselves for something that's going to happen in the future, which means that when it does happen, they will be better. Pam was an incredible corporate competitor today, and I hope you go out and do the same. If you could share one habit, one thing you've done consistently that allowed you to separate yourself from your competitors, what would it be? In my 30-year career, 2,500 of the greatest athletes, coaches, and leaders answered that question for me.
This is Don Yeager, who did that that article I was telling you about.
Don, Dave Sims with Coach K. How you doing?
Hey, Don. How you doing, my man? Great, sir. How
What they gave to me is what I'm giving to you in my online course, Journey to Greatness. Through engaging storytelling and on-demand videos, you will learn the 16 habits that will jumpstart your personal growth. I will instruct you on how to apply these winning characteristics to your life through custom workbook exercises. We are slashing the price for our podcast listeners. Lifetime access to Journey to Greatness is normally $399, but for our podcast listeners, it will be $49 with the code podcast at checkout. Click the banner on corporatecompetitorpodcast.com to enroll. Thanks for listening to the show. I would be so grateful if you left us a rating and a review. We will be rolling out a new episode every Wednesday. To be the first to listen, subscribe to the podcast on our website, corporatecompetitorpodcast.com. Plus, as a thank you gift, you will receive a free chapter from one of my best-selling books on the habits of high-performing teams. Stay in touch by connecting with me on social media at Don Yeager, Yaeger, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Until next week, I appreciate you.